Let's get our guy in. Bryant McFadden, two-time Super Bowl champion, and Jonathan Jones. I'm Eric Casillas. B-Mac, Indy was up 42-16 at the end of three quarters, and then we got some, garbage time, late touchdown type things. On offense, their offense was very good, basically from jump through the first three quarters as they cruised to that lead. Why were they so successful in every facet tonight?
Well, I think offensive line-wise, we're starting to see their unit healthy. Right, Quentin Nelson, one of the best offensive linemen in the National Football League. He's back in the lineup. Everyone else is healthy, and they're giving production. Not to mention they have the best running back in the NFL right now, the best healthiest running back in the NFL in Jonathan Taylor. He's a big-time playmaker. So when the offensive line is together and they're healthy, we can see this type of production week in and week out, regardless who they're playing against, because their offensive line unit is that good, especially in the interior. So that has to be the transmission for their car, the offensive line, and they have to utilize that and lean on that. And when they're running the football the way they ran the football tonight, EK, then you will see really efficient play from Carson Wentz. He had an outstanding night as well.
Yeah, it is the offensive line, no question about it. And take it a step further, of course, Jonathan Taylor would probably run extremely well as one of the best running backs in the NFL with a lesser offensive line. You're talking about one of the fastest running backs in the entire NFL in Jonathan Taylor. And he showed it tonight, breaking off that 70-plus yard run and hitting the second level as well as he did throughout the night. Yes, of course, the offensive line made the holes, and as B-Mac said, the transmission to that offense. But, yeah, they kept Carson Wentz clean for the most part, and they helped open things up for their running game so that Carson Wentz didn't need to go throw it around the yard 31, 35, 45 times tonight. He was just able to get it done with an efficient, right, EK, 30 pass attempts.
That really bothers me. By the way, B-Mac, my all on the line was Carson Wentz over 30 and a half pass attempts. Hit 30. And by the way, had like 27 basically at the start of the fourth quarter. Thank you. Appreciate that. I love getting beat like that. At least I had Michael Carter under in the rushing yards, and I won that by a half a yard. So you get bad beats, you take the good with the bad. That's the way it goes. JJ, the Indy defense, like as good as the Indy offense was, now let's go talk about the defense. They had a really windy, terrible weather game against San Francisco, and there wasn't a lot of points there. They held Houston to 3. They did a good job against Miami. Bad teams. Basically, everybody that's not a one-win team or playing in a sideways snow globe, they've been pretty lit up, and they gave up 30 tonight. Now, I get it. It was 42-16 entering the fourth quarter, but this is a backup quarterback to a backup quarterback, and they still put 30 on the board against them. What's your level of concern with the EDD?
Yeah, they put 30 on the board, and there was a garbage time touchdown there, but, they had a drive at the start of the fourth quarter back when they still thought that, okay, maybe we can work our way into it. The Indianapolis defense hadn't yet given up, and they allowed that one as well that bled over from the end of the third into the fourth. So I'm going to say 23 points they gave up, and then the garbage time touchdown for 30. This was the defense in Indianapolis that allowed third down conversions on 8 out of 14 attempts, allowed a fourth down conversion as well. And Mike White continuing what he did there in the first week, last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. I guess I'm not surprised. Maybe this is who he is. Maybe he's pulling a Matt Flynn on all of us, and after just 1 or 2 games, he's going to wind up getting paid as a restricted free agent. I'm sure we'll talk more about him. But Josh Johnson, who has bounced around any number of teams, he's about to hit half of the NFL teams, was out there on the street fairly recently. Now he comes in there, and Joe Flacco was inactive, and he's able to torch Matt Eberflus's defense tonight. And I mean, I don't think that I'm being hyperbolic by saying that. So there are some issues that this defense, that good in some areas, fairly average in other areas, they're going to have to get fixed if they're going to be taken seriously. They can survive it against Jacksonville next week. They can survive it against the Houston Texans 4 weeks from now. But they have the Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wedged in between there that they will not be able to survive it.
B-Mac, you played defense, all right? And you played in the secondary where when teams are way behind, they throw. If you look at the scoreboard, with 5 minutes left or with 4 minutes left in the third quarter, it's 42-10, right? So it's 42-10 very, very late in the third quarter. Are you willing, how much, if any, to excuse the Colts' defensive performance from there to the finish line where they gave up 20 points on the fact that you sort of get stale? It's 42-10. A lot of this is garbage time. Or are you not willing to excuse that? And if so, how much is Willie? You can chalk that up.
You know, it's a little bit of both. Because I know how it feels to have a big-time lead going into the second half. You're taking your foot off the gas. You're not calling. You're not as aggressive as a play caller. You're not as aggressive as a player. And you just want to make sure they earn it the hard way. And the Jets, they were able to do that. But one thing that I am concerned with, they gave up 30 tonight. They gave up 31 last week to the Tennessee Titans, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, 34, something
including overtime.
Yeah, 34. So in 2 ball games, they gave up over 60 points. So that's a concern for me because, yes, in between the 20s, when you have a huge lead, no question, they're going to convert first downs. They're going to get positive yards. But in the red zone, they were horrible. Not to mention, you talked about 2 backup quarterbacks, the second stringer and the third stringer, play in this ball game. And if Mike White don't go out with that wrist injury or forearm injury, who knows what type of numbers he would have had, because he was 70-11, 95 yards, 1 touchdown. Josh Johnson came in clearly not prepared to go through for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. So me personally, I'm concerned because in the red zone, the Jets, they were pretty successful. And anytime you allow back-to-back 30-point games, that's never a good thing. I don't care how large the margin of victory was.
All right, so you mentioned it. You walked us into it. Now's as good a time as any. Here's the question for the green team. When everybody's healthy, who should be the starting quarterback of the Jets? B-Mac.
Mike White. Mike White. It's very, very small sample size, guys, right? But it's something about the young kid that when he gets into the lineup, he has no heart. He throws the football. He plays with a lot of confidence. We saw what he did last week, right? And this is something I want to highlight. The first 2 or 3 series of the ball game for Mike White, he had 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions. Didn't back down, bounced back to lead his team to a huge victory. So therefore, he has a short-term memory, and going into tonight's ball game on a national stage, he started off on fire. So yes, it's a very, very small sample size, but you tell me who looked better at the starting quarterback position for the New York Jets. Is it Zach Wilson, Mike White? My choice is Mike White.
It's a very interesting question because obviously you invested the number 2 overall pick in Zach Wilson, but I ask you the same question, Jonathan Jones. You have Josh Johnson, who just threw for over 300 yards. You have Mike White. You have Zach Wilson. Everybody is healthy next week, let's say.
Joe Flacco.
Jolt and Joe Flacco. Everybody's healthy. You got your little rose. You're going to hand it to somebody. Who's the starting quarterback of the Jets?
Next week?
Yep.
Next week.
Yep, if everybody's healthy.
Zach Wilson. It's Zach Wilson. You spent all this time figuring out who Zach Wilson is. You spent the entire offseason knowing, all right, we're not going to be getting Trevor Lawrence, but we can get any quarterback that we want. Sam Darnold's time's done. So they spent all that time scouting at BYU and across the country, talking with folks about Zach Wilson. They bring him in. And they take a while to figure out the contract. They finally get it done in August. They have a terrible offensive line in front of him. They're trying to get it working with him. And now and they hired his quarterbacks coach, John Beck, to ostensibly be the quarterbacks coach there. They've already hired his own personal
I want to be clear. I'm not saying what you think they'll do. I want to know what you would do.
I would, having invested, if I were running the Jets, and the decision were up to me, I would absolutely start Zach Wilson because I made this decision. I drafted him number 2 overall, and I cannot be viewed as somebody who, well, you know, Mike White had a good
already
5 quarters.
Wishy-washy.
Already. I cannot do that with my number 2 pick.
The response, go. The floor is yours.
JJ, let's keep it real. I like your honesty, but yes, you would start Zach Wilson because you don't want to prove the world that you were wrong. That's the reason why you would start Zach Wilson, because clearly we just saw a huge important graphic right by our team that showed us every other quarterback has outperformed Zach Wilson so far. And I understand how the business takes over in certain decisions when it comes to NFL teams. So you know what they will do? Let's say all the quarterbacks are healthy. Let's say all of them are healthy, right? Especially Zach Wilson. They will do the same thing you just emphasized. They're going to make Zach Wilson the starting quarterback, but they'll tell White, you know what? You're not quite ready yet. We saw something on the X-ray. We don't know if you should go right now. So you know what? Give it another week or 2. Sit out. Let's get Zach back in there, and hopefully Zach plays pretty well. Because if Zach is not healthy and if Mike White is healthy and he goes and let's say hypothetically speaking, guys, he played tonight, threw for almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the Jets win, right? You can't go back to Zach Wilson. You just got to ride Mike White until he shows otherwise.
But the fact that he looked good, but it was only one drive is why it makes it a very interesting question. Because I honestly am not sure how I would answer that. I might have to look at the weekend practice. I mean, I think you're both right.
I know what I would.
And you know I'm not wishy-washy. I'm telling you, I'm not sure what the answer is.
I know what I would do. I don't know if I would believe in what I was doing, but I know what I would
do. I guess I probably would do that. I'd probably start the kid.
In a game and a half, in a game and a quarter, Mike White has looked better than Zach Wilson.
But it's a small sample size. It's a small sample
against 2 playoff-like teams.
I get it. I'm just saying it's a small sample size. All right. Jets D, because we did sort of Indy's offense, Indy's defense, Jets offense. Now let's go Jet D. Robert Saleh's supposed to be a defensive guy, right? Last 2 times they put on the whites and went on the road, they've given up a total of 100 points, 99. 100 points in 2 games. They are getting lit like a Christmas tree, and you felt like if Indy put their foot down, they might have scored 60 tonight. How much do you say, well, it's his first year, let him get his own people, and how much do you look and go, guy, you're supposed to be defensive. You can't get embarrassed like this in back-to-back road games. B-Mac.
Well, you got to look at a little bit of both. I mean, no one cares about the labor pains. Their job is to deliver the baby. And they're having issues right now. Now, granted, if you look at the personnel, their big free agent signing, Carl Lawson, they lost him during training camp. They're dealing with a lot of injuries on all 3 levels. And the best part about their defense was supposed to be the front, right? They got tore up tonight. I expect to see some issues in the back end. I expect to see some issues with the second level guys. But the defensive line, even without Carl Lawson, they're supposed to not dominate but play competitive like football. And that has been the issue. For the second straight week in a row, especially in tonight's ball game, they lost the battle at the line of scrimmage. And that's on Robert Saleh. For a guy who said this was the best defensive line group he's ever been around, remind you, don't forget he was with that group in San Francisco that had Bosa and D Ford and everybody that was on that team that got them to a championship. He said the Jets currently has the best defensive line group.
I know, B-Mac, but I have a friend of mine that every girl he's ever dated in his life, he's told her, you're the prettiest girl I've ever dated. He loves the one he's with. You know what I mean? I get it. Robert Saleh's loving the one he's with right now. These are my guys. I got to build them up. Even if I don't really believe it, I got to build them up. I got to make them feel good. I got to take a shot there. I just want to know, I mean, how much can you excuse that awful defensive performance of the Jets on the fact that this guy inherited a roster that doesn't have a lot of defensive talent, and it is his first year?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a talented back end, and I think that BMAC is being fair here where, okay, that Marcus May hasn't been living up to expectation. He franchise tagged him, probably didn't want to, and now he's not going to be there any longer. You don't have very many good corners, and Carson Wentz was able to attack that. C.J. Mosley, who you didn't sign to that big deal a couple of years ago, was not very good in run or pass
coverage.
But
it's not getting better.
And he's not, no. But that front should have been a lot better. And tonight they gave up more than 8 yards per carry. I actually did the math. You can take out Jonathan Taylor's 78-yard rush, which you shouldn't take it out because he did it to the Jets defense, but take it out just for fun. They still average 6.3 yards per carry. There's really no excuse tonight. It's you can't say short week on the road, none of that stuff. Being on the road doesn't matter anymore. Being on a short week in the NFL almost doesn't matter anymore. There's no excuse.
Yep. And as a result, Jets fall. They are now 2-6. Indy. Hey, why not us? Why not now? 4-5. And again, if you look, 2 against Jacksonville, Houston, and home games, very winnable home games against Vegas and New England. They'll be favored in at least 5 games the rest of the way. They already have 4 wins. You win the games you're favored, and you're going to get to 9, and you may find your way into the playoffs after all. Well done, gentlemen. Certainly appreciate your thoughts on there's got to be some controversy when it comes to the Jets. And as far as Carson Wentz, feeling right at home. Good job. That one's nice.
That is good.
That's a good one. See, that's
because his head coach's name is Frank Reich.
That's exactly it. So feeling right at home because they're reunited and it feels so good, like Peaches and Herb. They were in Philly. He played very well under Frank Reich, and now in his own barn playing very well with Frank Reich there. You see 15 touchdowns, 2 picks, and for the year, he's got 18 touchdowns and 3 picks. You can't win a church raffle for that. Carson Wentz has played very solid, not spectacular, but very solid to good football.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.